Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Empowering Real Talk. It's your girl, Coach K. Thank you so much for tuning in. You already know what I'm going to ask. Make sure you are subscribed to the Upgraded MindsetZ media channel. Make sure you are favoriting Empowering Real Talk on your favorite streaming platform so you don't miss the powerful episodes that we all know are necessary. I'm recording in person today. I'm super excited. You guys know that I love dialogue, and today is about to be that. So I'm going to allow my guest the honor of introducing himself.
My name is Keith Glascock. I come from a background in data analytics. So I've always had a career that kind of meshes data with kind of understanding how humans behave. And along that topic, I've learned a lot about social media and using my phone and tried to study my own data about how much I was on my phone. So I've tried to educate myself and become more aware
Right.
of how I use that device and what are some strategies to use it less.
Yes. And if you didn't know, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. I had the pleasure of meeting Keith at a local community event, and we've had several conversations since then. I really appreciate connecting with him, but also I appreciate his insight because he actually made this overactive brain think. And that is always a plus for me because I love constructive dialogue. I love constructive conversation, and I love conversation that is going to help you also be constructive and grow. As he said, he analyzes, and it's kind of what he does by trade. But we kind of talked a little bit more about the social media. And there was like this one particular book that we kind of talked about, and he actually shared with me, and I had the pleasure of reading it. And it really changed my perspective on a lot of things. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about that, Keith.
Sure. The book is called Indistractable. And it was written by somebody in the tech industry who I'll say he prepared a lot of the ones more addictive. There's things like unlimited scrolling, which happens on basically any platform you use anymore, LinkedIn or Instagram.
That part.
And what that does is it always like constantly keeps our attention there. It feeds us as much as we have the patience or the ability to sit there. And so a lot of people have called it doom scrolling.
I definitely call it that.
But luckily, he changed his mind, or he had some change of heart, and he came out with his next book, which is called Indistractable. And that is the book that I've gotten more out of. I've actually never read the first one, but where it's the strategies to how do I use my phone less? How do I take back some of my time and not just turn my time over to an addictive app or an addictive behavior to pull my phone out. And I see it a lot, honestly. We'll talk more specifically, but just in the way kids as young as my niece to, some adults that I'm working with, but they're in their early 20s and they constantly have their phone in their hand. And it's just such a distraction.
It is such a distraction.
I think we need a metric where it's like time in your hand. Like, are people aware if you just keep your phone out of your hand, it might save you from logging into that app or doing some of those more addictive things that you subconsciously just go to?
Yes, that is a fact. I know that I am guilty of the doom scroll. I know that I have been just really looking back, and like even on our phones now, because it has like the digital hours, how long are you on this app? And honestly, looking at that, it's scary to see. Like it says, oh, you've been on here for 80 hours. And I'm like, what? Now I have worked on that, y'all. And honestly, as a business owner and running multiple businesses, definitely not making an excuse, but I know that that does play a part, running multiple businesses, but also helping my clients with their businesses. But I'm curious on what got you actually in on this journey of really trying to modify our screen time. Well, I know you shared with me an experience that actually happened to you that kind of made you kind of shift some things.
So I was actually helping my family a lot one fall. We were just both my parents' own businesses, and I was around them a lot more than I usually am because I live a couple hours away.
Right.
And I had lost my Facebook account, like it got hacked or theoretically hacked, and you get the message. And I tried to get it back by submitting my driver's license and all their rules to make sure you're authenticated. And it didn't end up, they wanted to give me that account back. And I'm like, that was kind of a separate reason. I'm like, that was a lot of work. They have all my photos, they have all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, do I really want it back? And because of that fall, I wasn't working in my career role. So I had extra time and I started to look at, exactly like you said, a digital well-being app on my phone. This one was a one I installed myself, and
Mm.
it kept track of the top 3 apps I used a day. And I recorded data for 1 month. And by the end of the month, it showed me I'd used Instagram 1 day out of that month. So like, I wasn't
24.
necessarily using it more than 2 hours a day,
Right.
but to me, 2 hours a day was very draining. And I didn't realize it was draining until I like saw it on a paper in front of me. So that's what I had to do. And then that allowed me to make some decisions, especially with like the case of Facebook. I knew I would miss out on a lot of family posts, and my niece just did this or that. But my family's really good about sharing in group text.
Good.
So I'm not really missing out. I'm just choosing not to be on that platform. For a little bit of business reasons, I stayed on Instagram, but I really just was conscious and said, an hour a day is a lot for me even. So for a couple months, I just thought about it and finally came to the conclusion, like, if I could be there on there 15 minutes a day, just personal time, not business
Right,
related,
right.
that would be ideal. And so I try and stick to that.
I love that you have a routine, because I'll be honest, it takes discipline to be able to maintain those things. It really takes discipline to be intentional in anything that we want to do to better ourselves. Because as this book said, and as me and you have talked about, there are things out here for us to intentionally stay unfocused. You know what I'm saying? There's things that are intentionally causing the distractions that we have. There was one particular thing that I know that I wanted to talk about more in detail, and it was the amount of distractions that we actually have from our phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you actually came up with a great insight on that. And that's really just like, or the book just really not having the notifications on. And I'll say it all day. Oh, I run a business. I do this and I do that. But I had to really sit back after kind of reflecting on this book. Like, do I really need these notifications? And I don't really think that I do. Now I haven't gotten that point. I ain't that big of a girl yet, y'all. I haven't got rid of them all, but I'm definitely on that journey. So I really appreciate you, providing the insight of the book, but also being able to give me a different perspective, because I really think that that's something that I really needed, because I think that distraction holds me back. The social media, not even just social media, emails, and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. I don't need to be emailed. I check my email. So I feel like I don't need the notifications. You know what I'm saying? I check them. I
Mm-hmm.
know I have multiple. I check them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question that we just need to ask is, what's pulling our focus and what can we do to bring it back? And you are well on that journey. You are definitely inspiring me to, continue on that journey. So I just want us to talk a little bit more about that. Now, I know in the book, there were 10 points that that reference in the book, but I think today, and we might have a part 2, y'all. So I'm just going to tell y'all that. But there's 4 of them that I really would like us to dive into more, and we can kind of touch on them one by one. But the first one was the part of the 4-step framework, which is the mastering the internal triggers. So he talks about like the boredom, the stress, the loneliness are the root causes of our desire to escape into the distracting activities. We're bored, or
Mm-hmm.
we claim we're bored. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Great segue, and we'll get to the notifications. I think those fall
Mm-hmm.
more as external triggers. When we have internal feelings there, I mean, I've always been bored my whole life. I can remember being bored as a kid, and I can remember long summer days where my parents were at work and I was home with my sister and I was super bored, but we didn't have, our distraction back then was daytime TV
Yeah.
and go out and kick the soccer ball
Yeah.
around, right? And you see kids, go outside still and stuff. That's kind of a separate topic of like, have we
Right.
lost a play-based childhood? But it kind of can be wound into this topic. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're always going to feel bored. We're always going to feel anxious. And I think when people keep their phones so close, if my phone was in my hand, it's just a direct path to like, I'm going to cure that boredom.
Yeah.
I'm in a line. I'm not going to look around and just look at the color of the wall and look at the person walking in the door and try and make a conversation if it's like a friendly line, like,
Right. Yeah.
so like a lot of and you'll see if you just observe people, you'll see that they just they keep their phone at a, at a very close range, and then they can get, you don't know what's going on inside of them, but they can definitely get internal feelings, and a soothing thing for that is your
Yeah.
phone. For me, I guess, I'm not one who, I guess my example I gave to you earlier was like, internal trigger for me is just being home in the evenings. I live alone, single guy, so I'm kind of bored.
Mhm.
And that was always the time where I got my 2 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And I still watch TV, but I just find it a lot easier just not to be on my phone, just to like recognize that there's so many things going on in the world that I won't catch up on,
Mhm.
or don't really won't really amount to being important for
Yeah.
me. So I
Yeah.
just choose not to be on my phone.
And I think for me, and this is honestly a little bit of a transparent moment. I think for me, I think when I'm doing something maybe that I don't want to do, maybe work related, or maybe something that I'm just not a big fan of, I will go to my phone as a distraction, and I will go because I'm deflecting. I do a lot of deflecting. I've realized that I do a lot of deflecting when I in the middle of a project or something like that I'm just not fond of. I will go to my phone as
Hmm.
a level of, let me just take a look real quick when I'm really being counterproductive because I'm not getting it done. Even though
Hmm.
I may not like to do it per se, it still has to be done. And I think that that's like a deflective moment for me. So, like I said, that was kind of an eye opener for me to say, you know what, I can't do that. So, and like right now, I will be honest, y'all, my phone is right here. And see how he said, how it's close by and it shouldn't be because I am recording. I'm not going to grab my phone while we're in the midst of recording and scroll. So I do have that much consciousness to know
Hmm.
not to do that.
Right.
But that whole subconscious of just having it close by.
Yeah. And sometimes when we do focus work, we do need that like task switching to take us out and bring us back in. So it's not necessarily bad. What I would suggest is like
It's bad for me because
for
I
you,
end up on there
yeah,
for 45 minutes.
for you, you could try and say, I'm only going to do it twice in an hour.
Yeah.
Come up with some of your own, that will be one of the later steps, one of your
Yeah.
own plan or
Yeah.
plan of action, how you could
I love
control that.
that. I love that. And I know that they said that it talked about making time for traction, which
Mhm.
is the opposite of distraction. I would love for you to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So traction is, getting the things done that you want to do. So if your plan for the evening is to mow the yard and cook dinner and watch an hour of TV, and and if your phone comes into play at some point in the evening and you don't get one of those things done, that could be a little bit of, well, that was definitely distraction, and that's
Mhm.
you avoiding kind of making transaction. So what I've done personally is my phone with social media on it, my main phone doesn't have social media on it, with one small exception. But the one with social media on it is more like a tablet, and I just keep it in a drawer all day. I tell myself I can pull it out after 7 p.m. Sometimes I don't hold to that. I mean, sometimes I get a little bored at
Right,
5 and I'll,
right.
I'll go to the phone. But I'm pretty good about only pulling it out of that drawer once or twice a day and for 15 to 20 minutes. And if I really wanted to be disciplined, I could set a timer on my
Yeah.
other phone and say
Right.
15 minutes alarm. Some people might think that's a little extreme,
No,
but
but
it
this
might
is the
work for
thing.
me.
This is the thing. People will, but these are the people that doom scroll. These are the people that don't have any type of structure. They feel like that it's okay to be on social media all day. But you got to really ask yourself, like, what are you doing on social media? You're catching up with the latest gossip. How is that being productive for you? Or you're scrolling just to see what somebody in your community or your city may be doing that is negative. Again, how are these things productive for you? So I would be all for a timer. And honestly, I used to have it. So with the digital well-being, it allows you to set timers on
Mm-hmm.
there and it grays it out after you've reached that
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
of the day. And I actually used to do that. Now I've gotten away from it, but I did used to do that. I personally don't see anything wrong with it because what I feel like social media has dumbed a lot of us down. If you feel offended, then hey, that's what it is. But social media has dumbed a lot of us down, and we feel like because everybody else is doing it, that it's okay for us to do it. Well, what's wrong with it? I just go to social media, be entertained. You can't entertain yourself outside of social media. Like, look at your digital well-being. It says that you've been on Facebook for 8 hours today. Like, you can't find anything else to entertain yourself within those 8 hours. You know, what else? That's not a flex. I'm sorry. So just having those reality checks and also those accountability checks, I think is super important. We've gotten away from the whole factor of discipline, period. Because everybody's doing it, we feel like that we're not supposed to not do it. And that's not it. We've got to be able to find ways to be productive, not just act like we're busy.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the grayscale, because that's a very important,
Mm,
that is a good tool that our phones have
yeah,
to keep our attention not on the phone.
right.
And it really comes in handy. Mine is set for grayscale between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. or something like that. So
Mhm.
the core hours where I should be sleeping, or at least think about going to sleep. And what I love about grayscale is also, it just, if you're shopping and your phone changes to grayscale, you don't like shopping anymore because you can't see the colors of things. And I always
That's
enjoy
true.
like colorful products.
Yeah.
And so like as soon as the grayscale is very effective on my brain, it just like, even if you're on social media and it transitions to grayscale, I'm
It's
sure it
still,
takes a lot of the life out of it. And you're like, oh, maybe I should do something
yeah,
else.
it definitely will trigger your brain to be like, well, there's been a change that's happened. Let me change how I'm reacting to this change or something like that, or putting the phone down, all which is the overall goal, I would think. So yeah, the grayscale is a good idea. I think I do like that. And actually let's go ahead and talk about the external triggers, because I talked about it a little bit before, which is turning off the notifications and the social media and the emails. That was a reality check for me. I'm going to check them. I'm going to see them. I'm going to log in. Yes, I manage 2 businesses. Yes, I am over a nonprofit. Yes, I do this. But is any of these emails that time sensitive to where I have to get every single notification that goes off? And the answer is no. I think that we claim that as a part of our busy day, but in all actuality, it doesn't have to be, because you can set a specific time of the day where you're checking emails. I'm going to check emails between 2 and 3 o'clock for every platform that I'm on. And then after that, I might check them again at 7 to 8 o'clock in the evening if I need to reply to something that could be time sensitive. Because let's be real, if something is time sensitive and it's being sent to you via email, you still have a day, 2, 3 days. If something is time sensitive like that, they should be contacting you by phone call if it's that time sensitive. That's just my opinion, but nothing is that time sensitive to where I should be getting every single notification on my phone.
Right. So there's actually 2 trains of thought I can go with on this topic.
Mhm.
The first is more why it was developed that way and like the psychology behind it.
Mhm.
And that's very interesting to me. It's a
Yeah,
little
share,
bit
please
heady.
share.
And then the next is just like my personal story with notifications. So let me do the first one.
Yeah.
So think of your phone when you get a text, you get the buzz, right? For everyone in your contacts, it's the same buzz. So you don't know who's important or not. Your brain is being classically conditioned. Buzz. Somebody wants to give me attention, or somebody needs me for something, or we've been wired to hear that buzz and go react to it. Whereas, I think different platforms have different sounds on their
Right.
notification, but if it buzzed when your child or your mother was trying to contact you in a different tone, you would start to learn who's important and who's not just by the sound of things. So that's one way that technologists that study these problems are trying to make it better, or suggest that it could be designed this way and become a little bit better. Because right now we're just overwhelmed with notifications. And I personally left notifications behind when my corporate job asked us to put email on our personal phones. And I saw that as like, okay, everyone's going to do it. We all need to stay connected. We could be traveling during the day,
Right.
and it makes sense. But here I'm in the evenings getting notifications of work emails. And but I've never been the person that just dives into work in the evenings.
Boundaries,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. And I just, at that point, it was probably 5 years ago or more, I said, I'm going to turn these off. And then I didn't necessarily do it for social media right away, but
Right.
if I did it somewhere, then I started to ask, well, why don't I do that for Facebook?
Yeah.
And it was easy to find the toggle and say notifications off, and then, go over to email and personal email
Yeah,
notifications off. But I found some platforms make it harder for you to turn
they
notifications on.
do.
And LinkedIn was particularly frustrating. I found over 30 separate settings for notifications. And that, to me, still shows that we have this environment where they want us to be bothered,
Yes. Oh
for
my
lack of a
God, I
better
did
word.
not know they had 30. Now I
Yeah.
definitely turned off. I'm not a big, I don't use LinkedIn like that.
Hmm.
Honestly, I don't know. The platform just isn't for me right now, I guess.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I did not know they had that many, because like you would think that you'd be able to use like a master switch, right? To be able to
That's
turn things off.
right.
And that's just not
it
the case,
it
huh?
was lacking that master switch. And to go
Mm,
down, you had to see the first three levels, and then there were seven levels under each of those three.
wow.
And it's a useful tool. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not going to knock it. I mean, for job
of
searching and
course.
being aware that more jobs are out there, that's what it's trying to notify you of.
Yeah,
But you can only apply to so many jobs in a day. So it's just a personal practice where
yeah.
I don't know of a notification I have turned on right now except for texts. Like if somebody texts me, my
Yeah,
phone will buzz and beep and do all those things.
that's crazy. That just goes to show you the manipulative power that is actually out here when it comes to notifications. Why should it be hard? Because some people will be like, man, I'm not going through all that. I'll just get the notifications. Like they will settle for
Hmm.
the notifications
Hmm.
because they're like, I don't feel like going and turning off 30 different things, you know? But if you got time to doom scroll, you got time to adjust those notifications. So just a little friendly tip for you there. But I want us to touch a little bit more on the commitments that we need to have, because I feel like with us talking about this in depth, the goal and the focus of this podcast episode, you guys, is to one, bring awareness to why you're not being productive, why you're maybe depressed and full of anxiety and stressed out and things like that. I have come to realize that turning off some of the things when it comes to social media, when it comes to notifications and things like that, have like decreased a little bit of my stress and the anxiety that I might encounter from time to time. And I really would love for us to talk more about those things, because studies were done with regards to those things and just really showing that when you being intentional and committing yourself to being productive and turning your phone and putting your phone away and things like that, people have seen an increase in their productivity, their clarity, their mental focus, like all of those things. People don't realize how serious that really is.
Yeah. So the podcast I listen to, which isn't based on this book, but where I get a lot of my other education,
Mhm.
we'll call it the race to the bottom of the brainstem. So the technology has gotten so good that they're trying to hack to get to the bottom of our stem of what makes us react, what makes us. And
Mm.
so, like you're saying, a lot of mental health or physical health related things might come from using phone too much, or I'm nowhere near as researched in that,
Right.
but there's a kind of the expert in our community right now working with AmeriCorps. I was happy to see her
Yeah.
presentation included a lot of that, because she's a trauma informed yoga teacher as
Mm.
well. So
Nice.
she connected it really to
Yeah.
the healthiness of ourselves and too much technology, what the consequences can be.
Yeah. That's powerful. And it doesn't have to be a data tech in order for us to redo the research for ourselves, right?
Hmm.
Like you said, podcasts, of course, the Empowering Real Talk podcast. Although we don't get this analytical too much, but a lot of times we share our personal stories, and that is what has over the last 4 years has empowered transformation and growth within individuals. But I really wanted to dive into this because this is a conversation that's necessary. And as we know, that's the tagline of Empowering Real Talk. These are conversations that are necessary. And I just would love for you to kind of talk about the tips that you've used. I would love to hear your insight on that.
Make a pact with yourself. I would say right now my pact is somewhat loosely based in that, like, my social media is on a separate phone that
Hmm.
stays in a drawer, and I'm always good about getting it back into that drawer, not just leaving it, within arm's
Right.
reach. I try and pull it out twice a day, but sometimes it's 3 times a day. Like, I'm not hard on myself.
Yeah, and I'm
And
glad you said that because I want people to realize that when you're reconditioning your mind, so to speak, it's okay if it doesn't always go exactly how you want it to go. You may have a vision, but then like you said, you might grab it an extra day. You're not beating yourself up about that. So, and
Mhm.
I want us to be intentional because we do have to give ourselves grace because, again, we're reconditioning this here. So you do got to give yourself grace. Go ahead.
Thank you. As another point is, like, you could also set up a reward. If I'm someone who accomplishing things in the evening that I say I'm going to get done, like mowing the lawn, making dinner, an hour of TV is like my reward. I like to accomplish things. So I feel like if you were someone that needed an extra reward, you could easily make part of your pact be like, well, if I'm on my phone for 2 hours or less this whole week, I'm going to go get an ice cream sundae, on Saturday night.
Right.
Or like there's a little bit of creativity there
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
whatever works for you.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
wasn't just like, oh, I'll try it for a week and then I'll just go back to using
Yeah.
my phone whenever. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on this path. I'm going to stay on this path.
Yeah. And I think what also we have to realize too is when we're trying to like replace things, we have to replace them
Hmm.
because sometimes that we'll say, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be on social media. I'm not going to do this anymore. But then you don't have anything to replace that. So now there's just empty space. What are you doing? What's going on? And 9 out of 10 times, if there's nothing to replace it, you're going to revert back.
Mhm.
So just understanding that habits need to be replaced. If you have a social media habit that you're doom scrolling 10 times a day, you've got to be intentional in figuring out what can you do to replace those things. What can I do? Like for me, for example, I might go to the park. I might go meditate outside. I might go, just go sit at the riverfront for a little while, get out my car, grab my chair because I have my chair in the trunk of my
Mhm.
car,
Mhm.
so I'll get out, leave my phone in the
Mhm.
car and just listen. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Listen to nature. I'll do that at the park.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to reiterate that, you do have to find things to replace the things that you're trying to, get rid of or discipline yourself on. You got to get yourself a new routine, people. Definitely
That's
get yourself a new routine.
that's very true. I think what I replaced it with when I first made these
Mhm.
decisions to use my phone left was probably more podcasts to educate me on why to use
Exactly.
my phone less. So
Exactly.
it's
And you don't have to
probably,
hold your
yep,
phone,
yep,
you can just
yep.
listen and you're
Mhm.
doing other, you're saying you can be doing other things. It could be washing the dishes, you could be cooking,
Right.
those type of stuff. So yeah, I love that. I think I love that too. And you did, you found
Mhm.
what works best for you, but also gaining more knowledge because we're really in a time where we really need to be doing that
Oh
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, there's so much knowledge to be gained right now.
That is a fact. That is a fact. I love that this dialogue. And again, thank you so much for being here. Like, I really love the dialogue. But I want you guys to really focus on this question that I want to ask you. Are you using your device with intention or is it using you? That's a question that you really got to sit down. And to those that may be like, oh, I just don't care, then I'm just probably not talking to you. But for those who are saying, I could be doing so much more in my life. There's so many things that I still want to do in life. Life is short. I know that I'm seeing people that I went to school with leaving here at alarming rates. I don't want to be that person that on my deathbed, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't live my life to the best, to the fullest. I was too busy scrolling on social media. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what actions can you start to take? Start small. What do you think about that? You think maybe starting small could be a good like segue into beginning those transformational shifts with that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think starting small for me was
Mhm.
really just like setting that boundary with my work email. Oh, I don't want to see work emails at night.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to show up and check emails the next morning. Like, I knew I would get to them. And then I never really considered notifications on social media until I wanted to take a bigger step or a
Right.
bigger piece of pie.
Yeah.
So yeah, starting small is very effective.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Please share that with them, the book, the name, and the author, if you don't mind.
Okay, the book name is Indistractable, which we mentioned first, and then the author is Nir L. I'm not completely sure how to pronounce it, but we can
Yeah,
put the
it'll be in
name
the
in the
podcast
notes. Yeah.
notes. Absolutely. It'll definitely be in the notes. Is there anything else that you feel like that they should know before we wrap up here, Keith?
I think I got a lot off my chest for this topic, and I'm glad to be a guest of yours. And I've
Appreciate it.
listened to several of your episodes, and
Thank
I
you.
find it very valuable and find it very like-minded people that are on this podcast. So
I appreciate that.
thank you for this
And
opportunity.
now that you're going to be one as well, so I appreciate that. Listen, you guys, nobody's judging, nobody's, ridiculing you, but what we are doing is trying to promote change, because what we do know is that society is programming us to be at a second grade level as an adult. Okay, you've got to be intentional in doing your own research. You've got to be intentional in studying for yourself. Stop depending on other people to provide you with the knowledge, that you are more than capable of getting for yourself. All right. Again, the podcast notes will have the book's name, the author, and then I actually will include the Amazon link on there as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I definitely will have information for Keith as well if you would love to have him talk a little bit more about his journey, because I think that his journey is pretty phenomenal. And again, just thank you for being transparent and sharing your story with that as well today.
Of course, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, y'all. We're going to head out of here. Again, share this with somebody that may need that knowledge with regards to, helping themselves and getting on that and definitely doing what they got to do to be more productive in life. Cause that's really what it's about. Okay. We don't want you leaving here and you not being fulfilled in what it is that you're doing. All right. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel. Make sure you have favorited Empowering Real Talk on your streaming platform. I appreciate y'all so much. Stay empowered.